Seb Gordon, I am so happy to have you on my show. We met at a wonderful event down in Madrid. We got to play together. You are a monster good player on the court, and you have this most wonderfully interesting, rich background. So let's start with a little bit about who is Seb.
Yeah, well, who am I? Come from tennis. I'm a half Chilean, half Swedish guy living based in Sweden, but traveling to the UK a lot, trying to grow the sport of paddle through Rocket. So I have a background, obviously, working with paddle since 2018, more or less. So when you say rich background, I guess you mean my part and my years through the Swedish storm of paddle, which was obviously very interesting to live, and it sort of gave me a lot of knowledge and experience to hopefully do better here in the UK. 42 years old, father. I wish to say that I'm a paddle player, but I rarely play.
Uh,
Or I don't play
but
as
you're a
much
good
as I
player. When
want
you're on
to.
the court, you're a good player, Seb. That's for
I
sure.
have some trick shots that I've learned along the years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what I also mean by rich is the combination of cultures and the fact that you have a Chilean background, habla español,
Sí, hablo
um,
español, sí. ¿Hacemos
clarito.
esta entrevista en español o en inglés?
Vamos a seguir, pero en inglés. And so, but the funny thing, I mean, what I was going to ask you about the Chilean side is to
Yeah,
what extent, because I mean, let's say the Swedes and the Spanish or Argentinians, there's quite a gap between the sort of the Anglo-Saxon type of world and the hot Hispanic. And I was just wondering to what extent your Chileanness contributed to your paddle good playing.
I think it's mainly the passion, right? I think Latinos, as you know, I mean, you can just look at like Latino football. It's very energetic. We don't really love to lose, so I think maybe that adds a little bit of a flavor. And also, I think the way how you behave is. I play obviously a lot of paddle in Sweden, and people are a little bit more humble, and they don't fight over points. And there's a couple of clips if you go deep enough on YouTube when I was competing that I even in my own club, it was a few words that came out of my mouth that shouldn't have been there. So yeah, it's the flavor, I guess. It's the passion, and I think it's a good mix, like to have the passion and the drive from that side of things, from the Latino side, combined with the Scandinavian sort of attention to detail, organizational structure, and
Mm.
stuff like that. Especially in this sport, I think you can get a little bit of a mix of both.
All right. Well, so before we get into Rocket, I do want to cover off you as a paddle player because I always like to talk to people who play paddle and bring out what are the lessons learned along the way. So you come from tennis, you
Yeah,
converted to paddle.
yeah,
That transition, there's some things that are obviously easy, the volley, the ball similar, the net.
yeah.
But what was it that was a little bit stubborn for you to transition from tennis to paddle?
I mean, mainly defense, I would say. I was kind of I was an aggressive player playing tennis. So I think for me, being on the net, being aggressive, playing trick shots, never been a problem. Obviously, I think most of the old tennis players, um, they struggle on the defensive side. In the back glass, playing the lob a little bit more often than you're used to, obviously, and not hitting hard, like just like slowing down the tempo. But I mean, I think I told you my journey, and it's quite interesting because I stopped playing tennis when I was about 15. So I was never like I was never gonna become a top 100 in the world, but I had some talent. But then I stopped and I played a lot of other sports. I was playing ice hockey in Sweden and also floorball, a couple of other sports. But then I so my story coming into paddle actually came because I had a burnout from one of my previous businesses. I had a beauty company, and I found myself in a burnout. This was 2017 mainly, I think, and as part of my like rehab or like chill out process to sort of get some calmness into my life, one of my friends called me and said, "Have you heard about the sport paddle?" And I had seen it in Marbella and in Spain, and I think I even had played it when I was younger. But so we went to play it, and long story short, since that was like almost like going into a new sport, I wasn't really transitioning from tennis. I had a big gap of, let's say, 10, 15 years where I played tennis, twice a year in the summer or whatever. So it wasn't that big of a deal for me. It was almost like starting something new that I had some sort of talent for. So,
That
but
makes the
let
world of
me be
sense.
clear. I'm not a super player. I've done some tournaments, but I'm not. I'm trying to succeed in the sport in other areas than competing. Let's put it
Well,
that
let me say, if I could play like you, I would feel very good. But it's always fun because people who are listening obviously play at different levels, and not everybody is the super pro. And what it is that what is it that you think got you to feel such good therapy through paddle?
way. I mean, it's a buzzword, but I think it was the whole community aspect. One of the reasons that I really didn't have the passion for tennis is that you're all alone on that court. Like it's a mind game, and I have huge respect for those who succeed in tennis because they have to be very strong
Fair.
mentally. So for me, it was like the whole getting back to enjoy the racket sports, which I love, at the same time as you get the sense of community and the team aspect. Like there was a lot of betting going on in Sweden in those years. Like, we had all these tournaments, we were playing against other clubs. You had this like sense of belonging to a team at the same time that you can exercise the racket sports that you love. So it's a beautiful mix. And I think that was what really got me on. And also I think that's why we are looking into some new interesting things in the UK where we can really harvest on that sense of being, let's say, more of a team aspect between clubs. So there's a lot of tournaments going on where you can go and compete, as you just said that you're coming to compete here in East London in a couple of weeks, where I'm based at the moment. But at the same time, then you're competing for yourself. But if you were to compete for your country, or, obviously then you need to be very good, but just for your club, if you have that badge on your chest, like the team feeling, the whole fan base thing around it, I think that adds a different flavor. And I hope we can get there pretty soon in paddle. Because in the end, you can root for Aligalan and Chingoto or whatever, but when they play for their town or their, home club, it's a total different energy, I believe. So I think
Yeah.
that's what got me really on, because we had that sense of belonging in Sweden when it all started, because it was only a couple of clubs. So we were traveling around and playing against the others. And then it just exploded and it became very like mainstream. And that
Hmm.
sort of grassroots, startup feeling in the sport, I think just faded away a little bit.
Hmm.
Uh, and we're really trying to take that into now in the UK and London especially and elevate it. We
Yeah.
haven't communicated yet how, so we're working on it, but I think will be some interesting stuff coming out soon.
We'll hopefully let this podcast be a part of that.
Yeah,
But I mean, the idea of belonging, the idea of the honor of representing a team with people around you, and then it's more about us than just me.
exactly. And I think, there's two sides of the coin always, but it's kind of funny when people lose, they're always blaming their partner, and when they win,
Or
they
the
take
racket, or
credit,
the rackets,
or
you
the
know.
racket. But in the end, that's all in the recipe, right? It's part of that whole thing of the team aspect around it, which is unique to paddle, I would say. I've played doubles in tennis. I think it's quite boring. So yeah,
Especially men's tennis.
yeah, exactly.
So before we get to Rocket, I do want to just cover the Swedish market, because obviously it's kind of a banner market. I've already
Yeah,
had Danny Windall on the show. I've had Kalle Akesson to talk, who's a federation, to talk about how they're growing. Obviously, amazing growth. The pandemic, lots of things came around to make it happen. We had Abramovich, all sort of stars, and money and a good sense of taste to make good quality centers. But what are the lessons that you learned in the development and now the sort of kind of down cycle of the maturity of the Swedish market that you think would be relevant to bring as we start growing at a great rate in the UK?
yeah. Well, you have to remember, I say this a lot, but Sweden was it was a perfect storm. There was a lot of external factors that contributed a lot to what happened. Obviously, COVID, big player. You have to remember that during this period in Sweden, you were only allowed to play paddle and go fishing and play golf. And obviously, like during that winter, you don't play golf, or you, and maybe you can fish, but not everyone fishes. So like the full country played paddle, and there was a lot of people taking decisions on those numbers, myself included. So I'm also guilty, but you know, so on top of that, you have to also take into consideration it was a zero interest rate market. It was quite easy to get funding. Sweden has not as much red tape as the UK, so to get permits and to rezone and get permits, sort of what they call in Sweden like temporary planning, put it that way, is quite easy. And also, Sweden is an old industrial country with a lot of big facilities, old industrial countries, a lot of land, obviously. And Swedish people are quite entrepreneurial. So I think all of this was a big mix. And so that obviously contributed. But coming back to your question, I think the learnings that I have brought and that we're working on every day here in the UK, and we're working very hard, is to build the sport from the foundation up. So what happened in Sweden is that you could literally just open up a club during this period, you know, open the doors, and it got full and you made money. So like the human being usually reacts to that by becoming like sort of a fat cat and don't do anything. Whereas where you have to build a club over like 5 to 10 years, you start with the academy, you have the ground pillars in like the juniors academy, the youth academy, all the, you know, seasonal trainings, PT coaches, activities, events, socials to add to the offer. So I think that's something. Obviously, also you need to do the math. I think a lot of people thought that, you know, they do this very simple math, like if I just rent out, you know, 4 courts a day at, you know, £40 or whatever, I'll break even. So everything on top of that is good. And it doesn't really work that way, because usually then, you know, you have discounts, you have memberships, and you have you have holidays where people travel away. So they didn't really do the math. So long story short, we do the math very thorough. I think there's also at the moment, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say worrying, but there is a little bit of a gold rush now in the UK as well. And I can see people taking some decisions and jumping into leases that I wouldn't go into. So we're very thorough on doing the math, which is obviously not only cost, but also location, looking at, you know, connectivity, how can people commute to this club? Are we allowed to also, you know, add other features to the club, such as gym, wellness section, food and beverage offer? Can we offer co-work sections, etc.? So it's a big mix of everything, but I think have done the Swedish journey has brought me a lot of knowledge. I hope to be able to put it into play and use all of that knowledge here, and we're already doing it. But I think one of the main things is working with the club in itself and adding a lot of to widen the offering and build from the ground up, not just opening up for pay and play, because I think that pay and play in paddle, you know, this might sound a little bit, it's hard words. I wouldn't say that I think pay and play is going to die. However, I believe, and I'm a victim of it myself, that the whole thing about just reaching out to your friends and go play for fun, that sort of has its life journey, and then it fades away. You need to get people into the competitive side to start training, because once they reach some sort of level, to break that level, they need to start training, they need to go to classes, they need to start competing, they need to feel that, you know, that little feeling in the stomach when you're nervous and those things. Once you get to the point that you don't really feel that you're developing anymore, then it's very normal that you start looking at, let's try high rocks or CrossFit or yoga or, you know, fishing or whatever. So it's very important for us to follow the journey of the player and when to activate them, to get them into, so that they can improve their game, challenge themselves, etc., etc. So I think those
Mm.
are the things that weren't done by most in Sweden. However, there were many clubs that did it, and those are the clubs that today are thriving.
Mm.
So I exited my clubs, so we're not active in Sweden. But many of my friends, I have plenty of club owners that are very, very good at this. There's a few in Skåne, in South Sweden, that are doing very, very well. Also around in the Stockholm area, in the north, and in the Nordic region as well, North region. So I think, yeah, those are the learnings, and it's very easy. You can just look at Spain, which is a super mature country. How they work is very active. They have 3, 4, 5 coaches on a club with just 5, 6 courts. Whereas in Sweden, most of the clubs, they have maybe one coach from tennis, and they just open up the doors, make money, and then everything just went down.
We're gonna get to that. So that's a great story. Lots of good insights, Seb. I've played I played at all of your locations, and what I see is a consistency of a superior quality product. It feels like that's part of your DNA as well, is making sure that you have good carpets, solid, consistent glasses, a nice environment, real ceilings. Talk us through your sort of how you think about design when it comes to your clubs.
Yeah, well, that's my passion, right? So, like I mentioned, I founded a beauty company together with Frederick, my co-founder. He's also
Which, by the
involved
way,
in.
is another thing we have in common, because I worked at
Yeah,
L'Oreal for 16
yeah, you
years.
worked at L'Oreal. Yeah, yeah, a little bit bigger than my company, but
Yeah,
anyway.
more
But long
bureaucratic.
story, yeah, but obviously attention to detail and coming down to the whole branding side, extremely important to me, and not only because I believe that it will set us, aside from everyone else and get us some sort of competitive advantage, but just purely because of passion, I would say. So yeah, when we start drawing, we're actually at the moment in a drawing phase of our next club that we're going to open up here in East London as well, in Beckton, nearby London City Airport. We start mainly with the social area. We start drawing from that. And I think coming back to the whole Swedish phenomenon, people like started looking at how many courts can we squeeze in and how cheap can we build them so that we have a higher ROI. We sort of go the opposite side. We start with the social area and we look, okay, so we want to have all these offers. So in Beckton, we will have not only a fully flexed paddle club, we will have a upper floor with a co-working area, conference rooms that you can rent. We're gonna have a gym, which is not only like a regular gym, but it's also a functional training. So we are working tightly with the GB team on that. We're gonna have a spa and wellness section. So we're gonna have cold plunges, infrared sauna, steamers, and obviously the whole restaurant area, the F&B and the retail section. Very important to us. We try to obviously do it as good as we can. I think the purpose for every of these section is that people think that it's thought through, that it's premium, that people want to stay those extra hours, that they can come an hour before they play and hopefully stay a couple of hours afterwards, either go into the spa section or to just have a meal or to do some
Una
stretching
caña.
or social area, una cañita, we don't hate cañitas. So yeah, so that's how we play it. And I believe, I believe in a premium product. I think people are willing to pay for a premium product, especially in big cities where people have where people can afford it. And so we try to adapt to the community. So we build a little bit different in each club, adding different amenities depending on the space and the location and the demographics. But we always try to keep a red thread with some of the stuff coming back, and hopefully you can come into a Rocket club and feel that this is a Rocket Padel club.
Well, one other thing which I forgot to stress is that you believe in indoor. Well, of course, Sweden knows that it snows. England knows, or UK knows that it rains, but it's amazing how many outdoor courts there are in this country.
Yeah.
Excuse me. One of the things that you mentioned is bringing in coaches. What are the big pain points that you see players in the UK in particular suffer from? And how do you address that? I mean, I think specifically of the ability to get good coaching.
Yeah, it's a super challenge, obviously, and I think there's something that this is never gonna will never be finished, will never be done. It's gonna probably take us 10 to 20 years to get some players into the top 20, either Swedish or British, or I think the world sport really needs a top 10 player that is not Spanish or Argentinian. That would be lovely.
Well, or Brazilian, because we have a couple of Brazilians.
Yeah, we've had a world number one Brazilian, right? Pablo Lima was at least top 2.
Yeah, and Sofia Araujo, who's
and
Portuguese. So there are a
Araujo,
couple of little
yeah,
Carolina
but I think
Ortiz
it
is
needs to
moving.
be a non-Latino. Let's put it that way, or maybe.
Vamos.
That would not be bad for the sport, an American or British or whatever. But yeah, obviously coaching it's a challenge, and I think also the what happens is that the good players tend to also leave. They go to Madrid, they go to Barcelona to train
For the training.
and I don't blame them. So it's a little bit of it's an exchange. So we send down some players, they exercise and they train and they get better. Then they come back here and they coach. Also, it's not easy to get coaches into the country because of Brexit. So we have a sponsor. We actually have a sponsor license, so we are allowed to bring coaches in. But you want some sort of longevity to the project, so we don't just want to take in a coach and then he or she does 8 weeks and then they go away again. But we're working on this very hard, and we have a plan for it, but it's going to take some time. We're working very tight with the LTA. They're actually doing a tremendous effort at the moment, which I hope is going to turn out well for everybody, to get coaches educated. We ourselves have it's called the CDC. So we're a coach development center in Bristol. So we're coaching, I think we coached 25% of the whole country's coaches last year, educating them and getting the proper education in paddle. But yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, it's definitely a challenge. So we'll see. It's going to take time.
If somebody who is a good coach is listening to this, speaks English and is listening, and would like to come and settle in the UK, how do they get in touch with Rocket?
Well, they just reach out, drop us an email. We're always looking for talent, not only on the corporate side, but on the coaching side. So yeah, just drop us an email and we'll have a look at it.
I'll
we're
put the
growing.
exact.
We're always looking for coaches. One of the reasons actually we had a big challenge in Bristol in the beginning, because Bristol was a less mature paddle city than London was. So I think what really changed for us in Bristol was when we got coaches there. It took us a couple of months to find a proper people with a proper background that can really teach and that can follow a program. So, but we're working tightly on our academy. We're going to launch our own academy pretty soon. So we're working with some interesting names that can help us do the sort of the strategizing around it. Nice. But you also mentioned indoor. I mean, we didn't speak about indoor, but I'd just love to share a couple of comments on that.
Please.
Yeah,
please.
we are very indoor focused. I'm a strong believer of indoor, and not only here. I mean, not only in the UK or Sweden, even in Spain. We actually have a project in Spain as well, which is indoor.
Yeah, because the sun is a problem, and the heat can be a problem.
Yeah,
the wind.
You can always, I mean, if you can blame your partner, but you can blame the wind, you can blame the sun, you can blame anything, the reflections. And if you look at the top players, they all exercise and train indoors. Just follow them on Instagram. You'll see they're all in Madrid and Barcelona and indoor clubs. And then they have the cañita outdoors. That's fine. That's allowed.
Yeah, I think it's rule number 5, as you know, Seb. I'm a big believer in La Cañita. But the fact that you have these standard. I played a match the other day at Battersea. We didn't even finish our match. So, bugger, with 3-3 in the third set. We ended up having to finish with a championship tiebreak outdoors, which changes everything.
Yeah, anyway, of course.
That's the story. So, Rocket Padel, you've got Bristol, which is where my daughter went to school, university, and it's a big center. Great. You've got the Battersea, you've got Ilford, you've got Beckton coming. What else? What are the other areas? I mean, are you really focusing on the UK? You just mentioned Spain, but do you have other international plans? How do you see the future of Rocket Padel?
No, I mean, don't forget we have a strong footprint in Denmark as well. So we have 3 clubs in Denmark. Just finishing to announce the 4th. Denmark is a very interesting country, by the way, because they have done very well at activating the players into the competitive side with the Lunar League. We're doing very well in Denmark. They're good players, high level. Like I would say, like the average player there is like almost as good as they are in Sweden now, which is cool. Very competitive.
Nice.
So that's cool. I'm mainly focusing. I'm working mainly to on the pipeline in the UK, in London. We're focusing on Greater London. As you mentioned, we're opening up Beckton. We also are about to start build in a couple of months in East Croydon, which is South London.
Sorry.
Very unique location, by the way. It's gonna be, you'll love it. It's gonna be a lot of cañitas there. We have a big food court in the middle. It's next to the underground, which has great connectivity. So you can be in London Victoria in just, I think, 8 minutes. And it's 9 clubs. It's gonna be like the Battersea structure.
9 courts, nine courts.
Nine courts, all indoor, obviously. However, between the clubhouses, because there's a few houses, we're going to build these outdoor sections with a lot of social areas, music, live music. So that's going to be a cool one. And also we have some interesting opportunities in both North and West London as well. So I think going forward, trying to look forward, we will mainly focus on London for the moment, but we have some opportunities in other cities in the UK too.
Well, that is most exciting. I will be following this with great interest. So, Seb, where can people track you down? What are the best ways to engage with Rocket Padel to get people to go and click on and find some more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously following us on Instagram. We just started with TikTok. Us, the senior management, maybe we're too old for TikTok, so we're just learning, but we're trying to have some exposure there as well. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. So our handle is @Rocket Padel, and then we have all the clubs have @Rocket Padel _ and their name of the club. So Beckton, BPS, Croydon, and Ilford. And also on LinkedIn, obviously, I'm gaining more and more followers. I'm trying to share my wisdom on LinkedIn. I've never been a big LinkedIner, but I'm trying my best. So go in and follow me on LinkedIn. I usually share like 1 or 2 posts a month with experience. I'm sometimes just from meetings or just drawings from a new club or whatever. Any time I can send the elevator down to whoever's interested in building a paddle club, I'm very open. I believe really in getting much people that are passionate about the sport and that are professional to open up clubs or doing anything else in the paddle industry. I think it's valuable for the sport. So I'm always trying to help out.
That is a tremendous credit to you, Seb. Been great having you on the show. I can't wait to have our next time to play with you and chat some more. So thank you so much. Vamos, Seb Gordon and Rocket Padel.
We're playing soon.